Mr. Supervisor, you are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the September 20th work session of the East Hampton Town Board. Carol, would you please read the roll call?
Present.
Present.
Here. Present.
Present. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This morning's meeting will begin with a public portion where any member of the public may address the board on any topic. We ask that you please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. That will be followed by a groundwater monitoring legislation discussion. Water quality round 2 of the 2022 RFA grant recommendations. We have Melissa Winslow from Natural Resources present that, and an update by the Planning Department and Natural Resources Department on the fee schedule. Jeremy Samuelson, our planning director, will present that. That'll be followed by liaison reports, and we do have a few resolutions today. Is there anyone here in the audience who would like to address the town board at this time? Public comment? Matt, do we have any callers on the line?
There are no callers on the line.
Okay, well, we can go right into our discussion. The first topic, which is groundwater monitoring legislation. And John, or are you presenting, or we have FPM on?
We should have FPM on the line too, but
Matt, do we have outside consultants FPM on the line?
I do not see anyone in the Zoom room waiting. Were they
Okay.
given the link?
yeah, the link didn't change from yesterday, right?
Nope.
Well,
Same
why
link.
don't we
All right.
skip then to the water quality round 2 grant recommendations. We have Melissa Winslow here with us today.
We also have other members of the Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee, John Parker and Billy Hayjack with us, who are actually also representatives of the villages of Sag Harbor and then also of East Hampton Village.
Thanks, David.
Good morning, Town Board.
Good morning, Melissa.
Melissa Winslow, Senior Environmental Analyst in the town's Natural Resources Department. I'll be making the recommendations for the second round of the 2022 RFA on behalf of the CPF Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee today. So the RFA, or the request for applications, is an ongoing biannual process developed by the town's Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee as a way to fund high-impact water quality improvement projects. This process allows for the committee to receive applications with enough detail for standardized review, to make direct comparisons between projects, and to prioritize grant awards. So this round was issued in June and due back in August of 2022. We had a total of approximately $1.4 million of CPF water quality available. Applications all undergo a thorough review process, starting with an internal review made up of town staff, and then is reviewed at length with the Water Quality Committee. This round, we had 5 applications that we received. 2 of them were deemed complete, eligible, and were recommended by the committee for funding awards today. No problem. So this is a list of all the applications that we received. The top 2 applications are being recommended for awards. They're both wastewater improvement projects on different scales. One's a commercial IA project and one's a sewer service expansion in the village of Sag Harbor. These 2 projects account for a total award of $1,026,273. The other projects that we received included a large commercial IA project, a green infrastructure project in a private community, and a proposed groundwater remediation project in Georgia Pond. These 3 projects didn't receive recommendations from the committee based on either ineligibility. The committee thought that designs needed to be revised before being considered, or additional work needed to be completed before a funding recommendation could be made. I plan to reach out to all these applicants after this presentation to give them an update and provide some guidance. So I know you've seen this before. This is our scoring system that we use to prioritize projects. It's used as a tool to rank and prioritize the projects before being awarded. Each is reviewed by the committee for mandatory criteria to ensure that they're eligible based on the requirements of the CPF law. Once they're deemed eligible, they're reviewed for factors including water quality improvement, cost, project readiness and goals, and maintenance and monitoring criteria. Since this is an evolving program over time, we're constantly making improvements. I just wanted to point out 2 changes that were made in this last round. The project timeline and status of permits criteria were combined, and we added a section to give credit for projects with educational and outreach components. The committee believes this is important for ongoing success of projects and previously wasn't getting any credit. So the scoring sheet is also always posted with the RFA application each round, so applicants can see how they will be scored before they're submitted. This is the funding tiers for wastewater projects specifically. This was developed by the Water Quality Committee and the Town Board as a guideline for funding large-scale wastewater projects. Relevant for today are commercial properties. These are only eligible for failures and voluntary upgrades. They're eligible for up to 65% of eligible costs for properties that are located in the water protection district or priority areas, or 50% of costs outside of the water protection district. They're eligible for installation only, so not other costs, including engineering, permitting, consulting, things like that, and they're capped at $200,000. Sewage treatment districts. This is kind of a new field for us. This is our first sewer project that we've received. So this must include a funding plan to show how the project will be fully funded before awarding CPF funds. The projects should be phased when possible, and the allocation of funding may consider the property use in the proposed service area. The project must not promote new development within the district, and a presentation or discussion with the Water Quality Committee is required. So to get into the recommendations for this round, first recommendation is for the Gansett Snuggery, which was received by DAPL LLC. This is the upgrade of an undersized commercial septic system to serve 2 different commercial buildings on 1 parcel on Main Street in Amagansett. This is to upgrade to an innovative alternative septic system. They're proposing installing 1 hydro action unit to treat the flow of 455 gallons per day. This will lead to an expected reduction of 57 pounds of nitrogen per year to groundwater. The total project cost was $53,250. Being that this is a commercial property outside of the water protection district, they would be eligible for 50% of the installation costs only, which totals $23,750. So the Water Quality Committee is recommending an award to DAPL LLC for $23,750. This is an undersized commercial conventional sanitary system with benefits to groundwater quality in an area that's not likely to be sewered. So this incentive would support upgrades in this area.
Can I ask a question about this one? So I know that on your criteria, you asked for the property does not have any open violations with the town. Do you also ask for an updated C of O?
Yeah, we do look into that. This property does have 2 open building permits, but they are basically just 1 step away from getting their CO. They just need to submit their final surveys and get an inspection by the building department.
Okay, is the open building permit on the patio?
Yeah, they had an open building permit to convert a door to a window. I think they redid a walkway. There's photos of the site if you want to go to the next slide.
Yeah, I guess the question, would any of those trigger that the applicant wouldn't be deemed fundable?
Those wouldn't be, they wouldn't trigger a requirement for upgrading, so it wouldn't limit them from getting the grant.
Okay, so we're going to make sure that those building permits are closed out
Right, before they would receive.
first, and if there's any, because they did take out landscaping around that patio. I don't know if it got that much bigger.
Okay.
It was the patio that goes to Astros.
I don't think that's shown on here.
So
Yeah, well,
Astros is not part of the snug.
not on this parcel.
Okay, but even though people use that patio for dining at Astros, how does that play into this?
We could double check with Ann.
Okay,
Ann and I did an inspection on the tavern when there was some issue about the outdoor dining, and we could do the same on this before we award.
okay, so yeah, that brings up another question. If there's outdoor dining that's being used from Astros, don't they need a permit from the planning department for outdoor dining?
Correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I think we need to clear all of that up because I believe they don't have a permit yet for outdoor dining at Astros.
Okay.
So they need to come in and make sure that that's part of their process.
Yeah, and we can make that a condition. We've conditioned awards before that, if they meet these requirements, then they would be eligible for the funding.
Okay, so thank you for
Yeah.
checking on that. I appreciate it.
Anything more on that side?
Yeah, so this is just photos of the two commercial properties that would be, served by the new system and just the site plan. And the second project that's being recommended today is the sewer shed L expansion in the village of Sag Harbor. This was a request for funding to install an expansion of the sewer service area for the existing sewage treatment plant in Sag Harbor. They currently have an excess capacity of 90,000 gallons per day. The proposed additional flow from sewer shed L for this project is 12,562 gallons per day. This is the largest project to date through our RFA program. This would remove 33 properties from conventional cesspools in East Hampton and have upgraded treatment. The standard for total nitrogen for a sewage treatment plant is less than 10 milligrams per liter, which I believe it's well below that at the Sag Harbor plant. I believe it's below 5. The total project is 40 properties. There's also 7 properties on the Southampton side of Sag Harbor that would be included, and they're applying separately to CPF in Southampton. So this is a large source reduction in a priority area, which would lead to a reduction of 2,234 pounds of total nitrogen per year. This would remove this from Sag Harbor Bay and the Peconic Estuary, supports local and regional goals, and is included in the Sag Harbor Water Quality Improvement Plan. The total project cost was $6,840,500 on the East Hampton side of Sag Harbor. This project would be offset by expected outside grants totaling about $5.2 million. The CPF request currently is $1,648,359, which can be split out into 2 different phases. So the phase 1 would be the street right-of-way piping, the actual sewers in the street, which is proposed for a total of $1,002,523. This would account for the local match to the outside grants that the village has applied for. Phase 2 would be the street to home piping or home hookups to the sewer, which would total $645,836. So for the round 2 of the 22 RFA, the Water Quality Committee is recommending funding phase 1, which is for $1,002,523 to the village of Sag Harbor. This would help meet their local match for other grants. The TAC would like the board to consider making a longer contract period for this project, since it is such a large project, for about 3 to 5 years, as opposed to currently all our water quality improvement projects are a 1-year contract with eligibility for 2 one-year extensions. The award could also be conditioned that no additional CPF funds would be allocated for this phase of the project. And that the committee would also recommend phase 2 be funded through potentially a 2023 RFA application, or that the board consider a future change to the town septic incentive program to allow sewer hookups to be eligible for a rebate similar to an IA install. And that would have future applications to other sewering projects within the town. So this is just a site map showing the boundaries of the proposed sewer service area expansion. Also shows the sewer lines and parcels that would be connected. The star on there shows where the existing SCP is located.
So most of the residents within and properties within that area are rather small in terms of lot size and closer to groundwater. Is that what I understand?
Yeah,
So
correct.
the use of the more traditional IA
Is
is not
limited.
is limited.
Mhm.
Did that also include? If you go back a slide, did that
Mhm.
also include the boatyard there, or is that Breakwater Yacht Club? Or
Yeah, the yacht club is included, I believe. Is that right, John?
Yeah.
okay, so that really is like the waterfront at that point, and then you're just slightly south of Bay Street for
Right.
the rest of the district.
And the yellow shading is existing properties hooked up to the STP. So it kind of connects that whole area.
And where's the actual system?
The STP is that star. It's like right on the water.
Didn't show up on my.
Yeah.
It doesn't show up on our printout.
Cut off.
Yeah, might have been a slightly different
Water
version.
So that's where the system will be.
It is.
It is there
It's an
currently.
existing-
Is there?
They
Okay.
have
Just
they have
doesn't
extra
have it.
capacity, and they want to pick up
It's
this additional
yeah.
area.
There's another project on the Southampton side, sewer shed K. And those are the top two priority sewer sheds that were identified in their sewer master plan that was prepared by the village engineers.
And K is all within in the town of Southampton?
Yes.
And
Yep.
are they,
They have applied to the Southampton CPF committee. I'm not sure if an award has been announced.
thanks.
That's 7 properties, right?
So there's 7 properties within sewer shed L, which
L,
is a
okay,
combined
so
project
K is-
between the two
How many
towns.
are okay.
If you go to the next slide, I think it
It's
might say.
44.
Um,
K from what I'm reading has 44? Yeah.
And so the village of Sag Harbor, actually, I believe at the last Tuesday's meeting, went over their master plan for the sewer shed. So if there's individuals, homeowners, or property owners that are interested, I would recommend watching that or going to the village's website to review and see what the presentation was also then too. My 2 concerns on here, I'm favorable of this application. I just think it's very expensive when you start looking at it. Just per the funding source for the town CPF water quality is about $49,000 per household. Then overall, when you put all the funding sources, it goes about over $200,000 per household. So I'm always looking for alternatives. I believe they were hashed out during this process. I understand it. That's always been one of my concerns on it. But in the end, I'm favorable of the funding that's requested from this round and even the second round, if we get to that, if the application is strong and complete. Because as you mentioned, it is a regional issue there, and that's where they're going for it. But it always comes down to the individual properties, and it's skewed compared to some other areas where there is greater amount of property to use, greater amount of separation of the groundwater too.
Mhm.
So it's nothing new. You haven't heard from me yet. I just want to make sure you understand it.
It's a great project. It's a big project that will have a big impact on, Sag Harbor Bay. I know the village of Sag Harbor would be happy to come and present to the town board at another meeting if there were additional questions or if you want their engineer to go through the project with you guys.
And I can be honest, nothing's going to get cheaper anymore really as we
Right.
keep going.
Yeah.
And I think, as far as the economy of scale on this is probably the best it's going to be moving forward.
So-
I support the
Just a list.
Sure. Lease, but yeah, go ahead, John.
I need to get up or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say I support the project, after reviewing it further and seeing the area that's going to be served, it seems like the most efficient way to deal with that additional nitrogen input in that location. And it's so close to the Sag Harbor Bay and the harbor front.
This has been an ongoing problem. They've tried other solutions, but none of them have really worked.
Yeah.
So welcome, John.
Oh, thank you. I just want to say, I'm also on the Sag Harbor Sewer Committee,
John Parker from.
as well as the Harbor Committee. And I've been working on this project for about 4 years now. And I just want to say, in terms of background, we're trying to use up the full excess capacity of the sewer treatment plant. And it's a total of maybe 240, 250 properties that we're going to be able to add. Currently, we only have about 13% of the properties in the village hooked up. We'll bring that up to about 25, 26%. And there's another project ongoing for expanding the capacity of the plant by upgraded technology, where we may even be able to go further. But to address the questions, and specifically David's question, because I know he's raised this at the committee, it's expensive if you look at the total cost per the numbers of properties. However, you've got to consider that of these 33 properties, 4 of them are commercial properties. So it's not really fair to compare it to the cost, for instance, of a residential IA system, because we had an estimate that just to do commercial IA systems for those properties, Breakwater Yacht Club, the Sag Harbor Yacht Yard, which is actually several businesses at one location. There is a physical therapy and doctor's offices, and there's a school building. The cost of commercial IA systems for those 4 are estimated as being over $1 million. So that changes the sort of the per property cost. We also think that it needs to be looked at not in cost per property, but in cost per pound of nitrogen removed. And if you look at it that way, it's actually comparatively cheap compared to other projects that have been approved by East Hampton. The cost, even considering the whole $6 billion cost here, is less than many of the stormwater projects that have been approved. So on that basis, it's a very efficient use of the funds, especially when you consider that what we're requesting from CPF funds is basically $1 million out of the $6 million. So we're multiplying those dollars. And on that basis, it's a very good value for the amount of nitrogen removed. I don't know if you have any questions, but I'm happy to answer any that you have. Aidan Koresh is on our village board and is on the sewer committee. Wanted to be here today, but he got tied up with another meeting that he'd made a commitment to in advance.
He's on the line right now if you want me to patch him in on the FCC line.
We'd be very happy to hear from Aidan. Yeah, thank you, John. Any other questions for John?
No, John, these are discussions we've had. The only other one would be the long-term maintenance and the funding for that then too. But I think Melissa will answer that. Yeah, thank you, John.
This Aidan Koresh is here. I've been following through the meeting. Can you hear me?
Yes, Aidan. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank you for your consideration and all the comments so far. John has pretty much covered everything that we had wanted to communicate today. The only other thing I'd like to add is that what we're talking about here is 100-year infrastructure. That once this infrastructure goes in, it's gravity fed, just like the rest of the village, which has been operating exceptionally well since the mid-1970s. The maintenance and care of this infrastructure, once it's installed, will be paid for by the users. There will be just like it is right now, there'll be a rent fee on the infrastructure, and there'll be a use fee based on the number of gallons of water that are sent from the properties to the sewage treatment plant, and that's based on Suffolk County Water Authority water bills. And so we feel that this is it's a great solution, and to a large extent, it's the only solution to this neighborhood, this part of the village. I think the benefit will be felt by everybody who uses the waters and cares for the waters for the next 100 years. And I thank you for your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
The board have any questions for Aidan?
No.
No, Aidan, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
The other thing I'd like to add is just one point in terms of comparing with IA systems. One of the things we've looked at is how many IA systems have been put in since the program started, 5 years ago, where those have been put in. There have been none in this area and only one in the other priority area on the Southampton side. So it doesn't, and The one that was put in was very expensive, cost almost $60,000, I believe. And there's problems with groundwater, size of the properties, et cetera. So the looking at IA systems as an alternative in these areas was not seen as viable. There are other areas of the village where they are viable. So
Understood. Thanks, John.
thank you very much.
Are there any other questions on Sag Harbor? Or we,
Questions for Melissa?
No.
Thank you very much, Melissa.
so I have one summary slide, click through. There we go. So just to summarize, we had 2 recommendations today for water quality improvement grant awards, and those were to DAPL LLC, the Gansett Snuggery for $23,750. We will work on resolving any of those concerns prior to the public hearing. And then the Village of Sag Harbor Sewer Shed L for $1,02,523. The next round of the RFA, first round of 2023, will be noticed in December and will be due February 15th. And we estimate approximately $2 million will be available for those awards. So that's all I have.
Thanks so much, Melissa.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Do you have any callers on the line?
We have one caller on the line, and we do have someone in the Zoom waiting room.
Okay, let's go quickly to the caller and see if they want to comment, public comment. I know there wasn't anybody on when we started, and sometimes there's a little bit of a delay. So I just want to give an opportunity to someone who may be on the line to give public comment to speak to us.
Caller 1255, you are on the line. That caller just hung up when we put them on the line. There are no other callers on the line. Ben is in the waiting room.
Great. And ma'am, would you like to address the board? Please.
Is it on the water quality or?
It's just public comment.
Public
I just want to open it up for public comment.
So thank you very much for the water quality members for coming in and expressing everything today and all your hard work. Appreciate it.
And if you could just please state your name for the record.
Lori Weinstein.
Lori?
Lori, LORI WEINSTEIN. I live on Merchants Path in Wainscott. I've been living there since 2014. My house, I'm here with my neighbor. She's going to hopefully speak after me. Our houses are directly in line with the Maidstone Gun Club, and they're about 1 to 2 miles away from the club. We just wanted to make you aware of occurrences at our homes relating to the gun club that have causing us concern for our safety and the safety of our neighbors. In December of 2020, I had found a bullet hole in the screen in my bedroom, which is in the back of my house, which is also in line with the gun club, and I found a bullet on the windowsill. I brought the bullet to the East Hampton police and filed a police report. On August 5th of 2022, my neighbor, and she'll speak after this, will tell you about the multiple bullets that hit her house. If you go back in the police records, you're going to find a number of reports of bullets hitting homes on Merchants Path over the years. It's our understanding that the East Hampton Police Department is investigating the August 5th incident, and also that the state police are also looking into this incident. We also understand that the lease for the Maidstone Gun Club is up for renewal. And we just want to ask you to consider the following. The gun range doesn't have any full-time security officer, so no one's overseeing what's going on over there. The gates to the club are often open. They're often left open. As a matter of fact, on our way here, they were wide open. We drove right into the gun club. We could have, I don't have a gun, but I could have taken out a gun and done whatever I wanted there. There's no security. There was nobody there. Anybody can go in and shoot. We're concerned about the contamination of our well water from all the lead of all the bullets that are piling up at the range. And we invite you to be in our backyards at some point, because you'll find that the noise level is definitely, when there is shooting going on there, you'll find that it definitely exceeds acceptable levels. Besides the homes on Merchants Path, there's also a public trail that people bike and walk on that's right behind our houses and also directly in the path of the gun club. We just want to ask you that human safety be your number one priority when you consider whether to renew the lease of the Maidstone Gun Club. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Lori, for taking the time to come in and speak with us.
My name is Roxana Pintelli, and I live at.
I'm sorry, could you speak into the
Okay.
microphone? I'm a little
In the
trouble
mic.
hearing
Can you
you.
hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, my name is
Roxana.
Roxana Pintelli, and I live at 137 Merchants Path. I lived there since 2004. And, I believe that my neighbor had explained everything. We had incidents happening to us since 2004. Bullets hitting our home in the sunroom, in the bedrooms. And the most recent one, I think I want to play this video for you. I think that it will be very telling. I think that I've sent it to some of you.
I think you sent it to the entire board and
sorry?
we have seen it.
You
sent
have
it to the
seen it.
board,
Okay,
yes,
so you
but
understand
Thank you
the
for forwarding that to
magnitude
us.
of what's
That was a
going
pretty
on.
scary.
Disturbing video.
Yeah,
So-
it
Okay,
is.
and my contractors were there, and there are people that worked for me for the past 25 years, so it was really, really upsetting. And since then, I have been spending a lot of time at the gun club. Okay, I go there every day to make sure that nobody's shooting rifles. Okay, and I'll be there every day from here on, because there is no supervision. Anybody can walk around and shoot whatever they want. I spoke to members. You have plenty of members who understand and want to change things at the gun club, but we would like to see it gone. Okay. There is lead that is infecting and it's sipping around, the ground, okay, because nobody's taking care of that property. There have been homes built in the area which are within 500 yards. We're about a mile away. Our neighbors are about a little bit over a mile, but my husband, who understands guns, he's a former U.S. Marine. He was in the Gulf War, sheriff's office, former sheriff office, NYPD. He understands guns. I mean, we had to put up with this for the past 18 years, finding bullets into our home, not being able to hear the birds because I was telling my neighbor today that this morning was the first time I've seen birds come back to the property. Okay, because when the guns are going on day and night, 365 days a year, you can't hear the birds. The birds are running away. So for the first time since they shut down the rifle range, the birds are coming back. It's really, really upsetting. The value of our homes have gone to zero. We can't rent, we can't sell. And you know that the market has been amazing. There's nothing we can do because we're not going to subject anybody else to this type of torture. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I hope that you guys will not sign that lease again. I don't know why the people before you in 1992 would sign a lease of that. We read the lease, we know what's on the lease. It's unbelievable. We would pay you the $1 or the $100 a year, the 7 homes. And I think that there are other homes. We're now looking into what other homes, because the bullet can travel 2.5 miles. And so we would pay the town the $100 a year, $1,000 a year, whatever that is, for you not to sign that lease.
Thank you, Roxanne.
It's no longer a place where you can shoot guns. I mean, when we moved there in 2004, yes, it was quite undeveloped. But right now, you have rising population and new homes being built every single day in the area. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you taking the time and come in and address this issue. We do, I think, now have our consultants FPM on the line. Is that right, Matt?
Yep, I can add him in right now.
Okay, we'll move on to our next agenda topic, which is the groundwater monitoring legislation that we have to discuss.
Seems as though he may be having some technical difficulties. Just waiting for his video and audio to get going.
John, is it Ben Kenjemi's joining us?
Yeah.
Still waiting for his video and audio to pop up. He has joined, but seems as though he's having technical difficulties on his end.
You need to go out and come back in.
Yeah.
Okay, while we're waiting for outside consultants to join, let's just skip on to the update of Planning Department and Natural Resources Department fee schedule. And we have Jeremy Seamus in here, our Director of Planning. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, members of the board.
Morning.
Morning.
I'll be mercifully brief. I want to get out of your way and let you.
Good, because
okay, here we go. All right. And I'd like my colleagues to walk you through the substance of what we're proposing and asking for your consideration on here. As you know, we are in the throes of budget season, and we did not only want to look at the expense side of the budget, we felt we had an obligation to also look at the revenue side of the budget and ask some probing questions about when was the last time the fees that are exacted through our department were given a fresh look. You'll see some details on those in a moment. The concept that I want to share with you is the guiding principle for the work that we did in proposing these updated fees is we wanted to make sure that we were being fair to the broadest segment of the taxpayers of the town of East Hampton. And so that meant a couple of things in our analysis and in the numbers that you'll see here today. First of all, we had a goal for not making any of the fees onerous. We don't want these to be barriers to entry for anybody who seeks the services of our department. But we also wanted to make sure that we were being fair to the broadest segment of the taxpayers of East Hampton Town. And what I mean by that is some of the processes, as you will hear this morning, are quite involved. They involve the attorney's office, the town board, the planning board, the building department, the fire marshal. There's a lot of professional time and expertise that gets invested in actually reviewing and then either resulting in an approval or denial for some of these permit applications that land in front of us. And the simple observation that I want to share with you is that if the people who are bringing these applications forward aren't being asked to shoulder the majority of the burden for the service that they are asking us to perform, then what that means by default is that the balance of the taxpayers of the town are in fact picking up that tab. And so our analysis was that if somebody is bringing a major development application as an example forward, that person or that entity should actually not be making the town whole. That's not ever the goal. We're not a for-profit enterprise, but rather they, as the applicant that has this idea, owns this property and will benefit from the permits, should be the one that should shoulder the actual cost of the technical analysis and the expertise, regardless of which department needs to be involved in the process. So with that as a guiding principle, I'll step aside and ask Tyler, actually, who I want to give credit where it's due. When we had to really crunch the numbers here and map some of this stuff out, it was Tyler who put a ton of time in here, and he was supported by other members of the department, including Mr. Shantz. But I think since I've been here, Tyler hasn't yet had a chance to come and address all of you as a town board. And so I was happy to have him put together this presentation for you and share those numbers with you. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Tyler Borsak. Welcome.
Good morning, Tyler Borsak for the Planning Department. Fee updates. I think actually the last time I was in front of the board was for the last time we did fee updates, which was in 2016.
Right.
2015 into 2016, we updated most of the fees that we have. Some of them less so than others. We did take a fairly comprehensive look at most of the fees. And that's sort of why we're back here again, is to take another comprehensive look at what what we do, how much time do we spend on certain applications, what's changed since 2016. And Jeremy discussed most of why we're updating the fees, but a lot of it is, things have changed over time. Some things take longer now. Some things have changed completely. And that's most of the major changes that you'll see. Some of them have gone up just because it's been 6 years. But a lot of them, like the ARB fees, we're doing a lot more work with the ARB now as the planning department is concerned. So the fees are going up because of that technical amount of work that's going into those. The wireless fees are changing pretty significantly, and Eric will talk about those, as well as engineering fees changing just based on the amount of work that's going in and outside engineers helping. So those are the major ones that are changing, but essentially everything's going up slightly, and we'll go over those individually. If you don't have any questions, we can jump right into the fees, I suppose.
Questions?
No.
Please continue.
Yep. Tyler and I are going to go through, obviously there's three major appointed boards, the ARB, the planning board, and the zoning board. I've dealt in more detail with the ARB and the planning board. So what I'm going to do is go through these fee schedules for ARB and planning, and Tyler will talk about the ZBA. I'll also talk about engineering too. So this is a pretty straightforward slide here. You'll see the middle column are our existing fees for different applications. These are obviously the different subtypes of ARB applications. The right-hand column are the proposed fees. So most of these, if you look at these numbers, you'll see that we didn't make any drastic changes. Some of them are, most of them are increased by 50%, something like that. We did feel that it was important to, where you'll see in those categories proposed and existing, obviously proposed. So for example, that the first category there, business sign proposed, an applicant comes in, they haven't put the sign up, they're coming to the ARB for a new business sign. Existing is when someone's already done the work, usually received an ordinance violation. We felt that, and it's been that way. It is now, and it has been, that those fees are up a little bit more because obviously that has involved ordinance enforcement, and another department has been brought into the loop there. So that first category, business sign proposed. So obviously that's not a major application. Somebody comes into the ARB, they want to put up a new sign. It's not a huge project. But that being said, and I have as Jeremy mentioned, there are various departments that have their hand in that and have to be involved in that. I have somewhat of a, kind of matrix here of the different individuals that are involved for all the different application types we'll talk about. But so, for example, even a mere business sign that's proposed, you're going to have 9 different individuals that are going to look at that. First of all, from our department, there are 3 people that look at it. Julie Akala, who is the new ARB secretary and who's doing a great job keeping all of these applications organized. She's the first person that looks at it as the secretary when it's submitted. I also look at all of those applications. Will Highland, one of our planners, reviews all of the ARB applications now for that board. Historically, in years past, the ARB has not had, I don't know if you'd call it representation from the planning department, but assistance of the planning department. That's something we changed a few years ago, and he reviews and assists the ARB on behalf of the department. So that's 3 people. Obviously, the town attorney, David McMaster, right now is the town attorney that assists the ARB. That's a 4th person. And then obviously you have a 5-member ARB board. So right away, even a simple business sign, you have 9 people looking at that, 9 people doing work that leads up to that being reviewed at a meeting, and then also reviewing it at a meeting. So I'm giving you that as an example of something that's a very, one of the more minor types of applications that we process. So really you'll see kind of in the middle here, and then on the right, you'll see agricultural buildings exempt. The main change to ARB fees here, the most significant one, is for agricultural overlay properties. Now, the majority of these applications that the ARB gets are for new single-family residential construction, generally large buildings, large homes, usually either south of the highway in Wainscott or along Further Lane, just by virtue of the fact that that's where our agricultural overlay districts are. But these applications, I found through my involvement over the past years, they require a lot of work. Ostensibly, the amount of work that the ARB puts into them is very similar to the amount of work that the planning board puts into site plan applications. Now, I know there are a number of members of the town board here today who are also members of the planning board. As you know, those site plan applications are rarely resolved in one meeting in front of the planning board. They often come back for, usually 4 times, sometimes more, depending on the application. That's been the case with these ag overlay applications as well. So you see the existing fee, and, I'm not trying to, obviously, somebody buys property, wants to build a home. I'm not trying to vilify that at all. But if you look at the existing fee for let's say you're proposing a 12,000 square foot home on a property in the agricultural overlay, right now your fee is $200. That is not reflective of the amount of work that is done by not only our department, but various other departments. Again, this is another situation where the town attorney is looking at it. There are multiple members of the planning department that are looking at it. Occasionally, the fire marshal has to look at it, for various reasons. But your 5-member ARB, Architectural Review Board, is looking at this usually 4 times for most of these applications, and not quickly, because when you're putting a new residence on a vacant lot, again, I draw the analogy to a site plan. Obviously you don't have traffic and parking and circulation issues with a residence, but you have to consider the siting of the building, the mass of the building in relation to the neighboring properties. All of these are things that are when these applications, and if you ever watch an ARB meeting, when they come up in front of the ARB, it's certainly not a rubber stamp where the board says, do you like it? I like it. Okay. There's multiple times that these applications come back and forth. So that's the most significant change to the ARB fee schedule. We feel that fee is reflective of basically the minimum amount of hours and work that is put in by town staff to review those applications. So as you look through the rest of the schedule here for the ARB, you'll see that nothing is terribly drastically changed. That's the most significant one. And then you'll see on the right-hand margin there, another thing that we discussed when we were considering amending this fee schedule is exempting agricultural buildings, true agricultural buildings for an active agricultural operation. Obviously, and you can see that this fee schedule is also mirrors site plan, where it's a flat fee and then based off square footage. Obviously, a farmer building a new barn, it's going to be a large structure. We didn't want to penalize them for the fact that they generally need larger buildings. And obviously, we feel that's consistent with the town's goals as laid out even in the comprehensive plan to promote agriculture throughout the town. So I guess we'll move on to
I have a question on that.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Could you just define the area, agricultural overlay? Is that area is defined as GFA? It's a lot coverage. What is the 500? You said 500.
Is that the square foot of the improvement that would be proposed or existing?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that
it's square feet of area, right?
But it's area GFA or is it?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, our intention really with this, there's been some gray area in how that's calculated, but our intention with this is to be GFA. So perhaps we need to modify the wording there. That is a conversation that we've had in the past of, and I don't think that works exactly for, again, drawing the parallel to site plan applications. A site plan application, you may have a smaller building, but there's a lot of, disturbance going on in the land. In that case, it's more appropriate to be doing it by square footage of improvement. But the intention here, again, this is an ARB application, so they're reviewing a building for the most part. So we do intend to tie this into to square footage of gross floor area. So yeah, that's something that the wording there is not clear on that, and we certainly could make it clearer. So it's a very good question, but that was our intention. So if we move along to the planning board fee schedule, obviously this is same format here, so hopefully it's easy to follow. You'll the majority of the applications that the planning board reviews are site plan applications. You'll see there's not really too significant of a change here. Again, as you know, Tyler mentioned, it's been 6.5, almost 7 years since this fee schedule has been updated. There's inflation, there's growing costs for many things in the town. So we feel that that's a modest but appropriate increase in the application fee. And again, you know, that's the bulk of the work that the planning board does. Certainly not everything, but that's what takes up most of their time. As you go down through this and you look at the different uses or different categories here, change of use, lot line modifications, subdivisions, we haven't proposed to change that terribly significantly. And I don't think any of those fees are overburdensome on a developer. Again, keep in mind, you're doing a subdivision in this town, you're ending up with, you know, well, if you're doing a minor subdivision up to 4 lots, a subdivision or standard subdivision would be more than that. You're making it, you're probably going to get a pretty good return on investment here. And a lot of work goes into those. You know, for example, if you look at preliminary subdivision, which is down towards the bottom here. So obviously some of those are get through the process quicker than others. But I will remind you that the subdivision of the pit in Wainscott is a preliminary subdivision. The town, obviously these fees aren't, there's a whole thing with the secret process there where the applicant pays for some of the outside consultants, but that's an application that's been going on for quite a while. We've needed a lot of legal advice. You know, there've been multiple reviews in front of the planning board that may be going for a public hearing soon, which requires all sorts of additional staff that review those applications. So it really is something that there's a lot of hands on an application like that. And generally speaking here, you know, well, I won't jump back to site plans, but it's almost the same, but a subdivision like that. So for example, you know, again, this has been, that example I gave you has been in front of the planning board, I believe 6 times, maybe 7. Every time that happens, a town attorney has to be present. The planning department has at least 4 members of staff that look at that. Myself, you know, a planner, you know, generally in that case, I'm the one handling it, but myself, Jeremy, most of the time there's another planner assigned to it. So that would even be another person. Our administrative staff has to accept that information, log it in, keep records of it, both digitally and physically. So we have, you know, two administrative staff that handle that. The fire marshal reviews every submission to the planning board. And then, of course, you have a 7-member planning board staff that is at each one of those meetings. So every time there is a submission and a new review, you're getting at least 13, maybe up to 15 people that have to respond to that submission. So this is a lot of time that town staff put into these applications. And obviously, you know, the time of the town staff is money. So, you know, again, with all of these, keep in mind, and Jeremy said it, we're not looking to have the applicant pay the full price of processing an application. We're looking to do the best we can to offset those fees that are incurred to do the proper review of them. So we have another slide here, finishing off the planning board fees. So most of the stuff you see on the top there is pretty self-explanatory. One of the big changes here are the wireless fees. This is something that the town board may even want to discuss. So again, existing and proposed, the town, and thank you for adopting the much needed wireless code changes very recently. The town is overhauling the wireless code. So there's an existing wireless code and one that will be new, hopefully within a month. Under both of those, we have tiered out the types of applications. Tier 1 are the most simple utility pole mounted small cell. Tier 2 are swap outs and co-locations on existing structures. And Tier 3 are the biggies. They're the new macro cell sites. So when you look at this fee schedule, you'll see 2 things. Tier 2 and Tier 3, we have not changed. That's I think a discussion that the town board should have. Again, when you're looking at wireless, it can't be something where the town is making money off of it. It has to be reasonably related to the cost of reviewing that application. And that's the same with every application, but wireless is sort of its own thing due to legal precedent in other municipalities. So that's something I'm actually going to bring up with Cityscape, our wireless consultants, and have them see if they feel that have them take a deeper dive into this. When we did discuss these fee schedules, I did bring it up to them. They said that they felt it was appropriate. So we basically kept those the same.
With one exception.
With the one exception being the Tier 1. Tier 1 is the only fee here in this proposed fee schedule that has gone down. The reason for that is that, again, legal precedent basically says with these, and again, these are small cells, so you're looking at essentially multiple nodes on multiple utility poles in a certain area to create a coverage network. Basically, FCC rulings and legal precedent, as we've been advised, basically says that you can charge $500 for a single application that can have up to 5 nodes. And then after that, you can only charge like a nominal fee for additional ones of about $100. That's basically been established and something that we really don't have any say over. So, not having a say, we followed our legal advice, and we recommend that you make that change. Again, that's a significant reduction in the fee cost, but we actually, up until this point, have not had many Tier 1 wireless applications. We're anticipating many more, and we'd be spending a lot more money, my understanding, on challenging these applicants if they bring up this established, price setup. So spending more through legal, involvement. So, and then the other thing, just if you look at the bottom here, the way that the new wireless code is worded, we don't have modifications anymore. And really the main reason for that is that most of like Tier 2 swap outs of equipment, that, all of those are essentially modifications every time they're coming in and putting new equipment, but it's basically the same project as the first time they put the original set of antennas on there. So basically, and then if you have a Tier 3 application, build a new tower, and then now you want to modify it by co-locating another carrier on it, that's going to be a Tier 2 application. So it's really not necessary to have that subcategory of modification. So we did away with that in the wireless code. It also takes the exact same amount of time and hands on it for review. So it doesn't make sense to carry that forward in the fee schedule. So I will move on to engineering. And this is actually, in my opinion, the biggest change that we're proposing. So again, the town board knows that we do not have an in-house town engineer. We have an outside consultant that reviews all of the engineering matters for urban renewal maps, whether they be road assignments, things of that sort. So, again, you're looking at the existing fees of $100, $150. As most people know, outside consultants, that's a base fee to look at things. So it's really not reflective of the cost that the town is incurring to hire that outside consultant and the amount of work that's going into it, because not only is that outside consultant looking at it, we also have staff that is processing that, both in the planning department and in various other departments, including the building department. So there's many hands on that. But when I say that this is the biggest change, you'll see that second row of application subtype, which is an urban renewal map modification. Right now, we charge $100 for that. The proposal is to go to a $1,000 base fee and then $800 per lot. And the real reason that we're doing that is, by my count,
This goes through 18 individuals that work for the town, including all 5 of you. As you know, you hold public hearings for urban renewal map modifications. So when an applicant submits an urban renewal map modification request, it comes in to the planning department. Nora Jacobs, who is our administrative assistant, who helps the engineer, takes the application in, gets all the paperwork together, logs it in, sends it to the engineer. Now the engineer looks at it, gives it a cursory look over and sees, basically what the situation is. We then send it to IT, information technology. Barnaby Friedman in particular usually prepares the maps that show the existing and proposed. Then, and this is mandated under the code, that the planning board look at it first and send comments to you guys. I look at it, I assign it to a planner, usually Will Highland in our department. He reviews it, writes up a memo. Again, it goes back to the administrative staff to put it on an agenda for the planning board to discuss. Our memo is then discussed at a planning board meeting by all 7 members of the planning board. Sometimes we have to look at those twice, usually not. The planning board will then pen their recommendation in a letter that has a recommendation to this board. This board then needs to have their town attorney and their staff schedule a public hearing. It's then heard by all 5 of you at a public hearing, and then it goes back to the town attorney to do the necessary filing if you do, in fact, adopt that UR map modification. And it often has to go back to IT again, just to prepare documentation as well as the planning department. So that long and lengthy process, the amount of work going into that, slightly more than $100. I think you could follow with that. So we feel that that's a big change that needs to be made, because of all of these processes that go through the ARB, engineering, planning board, ZBA, that's probably the most involved. And I would like to also point out that none of that is sort of elective. It's not by decision of how we want to process things. It's mandated by the town code that these go to the planning board, that they need to consider it, send comments to the town board. The town board must hold a public hearing. So this is all support work that's done, to further what the law and the code says is the required procedure. So that's probably the biggest change that you see in any of these proposals. The last category that we have here is obviously the Zoning Board of Appeals. Tyler, works mostly himself with the Zoning Board of Appeals. And that is, I will say, also of the boards that the planning department assists, the one that we have usually at any given time have the most active applications for. And I'd like to personally thank Tyler while I'm up here for handling the lion's share of that. We, as many departments have been short-staffed recently, and Tyler does a great job of keeping up with that paper chase that that we all have to deal with. So I'll let him just speak briefly to some of these changes.
Thank you, Eric.
All righty. So zoning board fees, most of these are relatively the same. Slight increases here and there across the board. The major changes through the zoning board, the modification requests for one, modifications now require a public hearing. So there's additional work involved with that. So those have gone up somewhat more significantly than others. They require, notice in the paper, which costs us money. So that's one of the major changes is the modification request. Another one to point out is the extensions of time. And this is across all boards that this has changed in. Extensions of times back in 2016 was done as like a sliding scale. So as the application got older, it got as to be a larger and larger fee every year. And it got to be cumbersome for both us and the applicant trying to figure out what the fee is on any given year. So we just made it a flat fee and made it retroactive. So if you have an application that's 10 years old, it's $500 every year, regardless of when it was originally permitted, when the last time, it would just be $500 from the last time you did your last extension of time. So if you did an extension of time last year, it's $500 this year. It's much simpler, shouldn't require much more work on our end. The applicant should be able to figure it out very easily. So that's a change that I was happy to get done because it has been difficult trying to figure out the fees at times, dating back to the 80s sometimes on certain applications. The appeal fee also doubled. Appeals are significantly more work. They require a lot of work on our end that we've been doing for the zoning board, getting old building permits together, COs, site visits. There's a lot of work goes into appeals, so we doubled the cost on those. And additionally, just to point out that the lot inspection fee hasn't gone up significantly. It's more of a service that we provide the town at this point. $300 for a lot inspection on less than an acre is a good deal. Two of us do it right now. Brian and myself will probably be adding a third person next week, who will probably be coming out with us as well. So 3 technical staff doing every lot inspection. I think $300 is very fair. But other than that, I think most of them are very straightforward. If you had any questions specific to these, it certainly could answer them. But a lot of it's just minor changes here and there.
Thank you, Tyler. Any questions for board members on any of the
No.
topics?
I just have an overall question. So where it says existing, these are all permits. These are people who have gone ahead and done something without a permit.
That's correct.
So I would say I would probably make those bigger. You went from like a use variance. So somebody is now using their property in the zoning. This is under the zoning board. You went from $1,000 to $1,200. I mean, I don't think that's a deterrent. Not that this is supposed to be,
Right.
but it certainly is something that would give somebody pause to make sure that they came to the zoning board of appeals. So that
So I think aren't there violations involved too? And I think that the overall idea here is that fees are supposed to be based on the administrative costs incurred and really shouldn't be higher than that. And if there are issues with that, we should address it in the penalty section of the code.
But the penalties can only be a certain, we can't go over usually $1,000 per.
Well, you're not really supposed to be punitive in your fee structure.
I'm not looking quite at punitive, but maybe a little bit. It's saying that, people will look twice at trying to do something with knowing. Anyway, it's just a thought. And I know that a lot of these, as we go back through them, are, existing without permission, that they're not a big jump.
Well, in not being punitive, but having been on the zoning board and what Sylvia's saying, it certainly takes a lot more review to review something on paper as proposed than something that is as built. And where you have to go out to the field and then you have to do a lot more work on that particular property. So I just hope the fees proposed for existing reflect the additional amount of work properly that you have to do when something is already there as proposed to looking at something on a survey.
And what we did was we didn't really delve into it in that sense. The existing fee structure, as you can see for all these various applications, has an existing and proposed, and the existing is more. We basically decided what we thought was, kind of a minimal appropriate increase in the respective fees, but then we didn't really change the proportion. You know what I mean? We kind of kept that, if you had something that was 150 proposed, 200 existing, they both went up, but they both went up, relative to each other. So we didn't anywhere in here basically reevaluate the concept of, should existing be much, much more because of the extra work that goes into it. So just letting you know that, we didn't delve into that on all the existings, up them up exponentially. We kind of kept them relative to the increase of the proposed types of applications.
So my other comment was just with existing, make sure that people understand existing means it's existing without a permit.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because it just says existing and that
can be confusing.
It can be confusing. So
that's a very good point.
The other comment was David asked the question on ag overlays that were proposed, and you're using GFA instead of, why not use total lot coverage? To me, that has more of a change in character of the community than maybe even GFA. But
lot coverage is only in one dimension, so on one level.
Yeah.
Whereas GFA could be multi-story structure.
Yeah, correct.
So you could have less lot coverage, less footprint, but more GFA covers more of the actual mass and scale of the building. project, I believe.
Due to the second story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To the fact
With
you
the-
can.
The
have
lot,
multiple
lot coverage
stories.
would be the driveway, which is not on here, but
Decks,
you do have,
pools, swimming pools.
true, and you do have
know,
fences and berms in here.
patios, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's certainly a judgment call that could be made, and it's really, you know.
Or you
your
could
own
include
word.
both.
You
too.
could
I mean,
include both,
Sure.
whichever's larger, if you want to put it that way.
Mhm.
I think accessory structures should be additional into there also, because some accessory structures on ags can be thousands of square feet aggregate also.
Yeah,
I guess you could, maybe this is more of a legal thing. I guess you could make an argument that for the most part, the triggers for development in the agricultural overlay requiring ARB approval are, the way that it's worded in the code, are linked to buildings. In fact, actually subgrade buildings, so like swimming pools, are exempt from ARB review. So I could see that you can make the argument that you should stick to the improvements that have a nexus between the things that trigger the required review by the ARB. But that being said, again, having attended the ARB meetings for a number of years now, obviously you can't really separate out, you know, a building from the landscaping and screening and the siding on it and things of that sort that will affect the mass and the appearance of the building and other aesthetic elements. But I would just point that out, is that you might want to give some consideration to, you know, the new residents, you know, any above grade accessory structure. Those are the things that trigger the need for ARB review in the ag overlay. So maybe, you know, if you say, for example, any area disturbed and you're charging them for the size of the lawn, I don't know that there's again, that's a legal consideration and also just a judgment call for you guys. But, you know, we will amend the schedule and change the, you know, the verbiage here. However,
I would be up for GFA and accessory, square footage of accessory structures on there also. I mean, because accessory structures, as you know, can be multiple on there. And sometimes accessory structures are the ones that are going to be closer to the ag overlay areas that you're trying to protect that vista from.
Yeah.
Also, and they could have multiple accessory structures on a property. So I think that's just as much being reviewed by the ARB in planning as just the primary structure too.
yeah, for sure.
good point.
Any questions for either Tyler or Eric?
No, I think mostly everything's reasonable there. And it's nice to have that review of it then too, openly, so that everyone understands the reasoning for it.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that the departments have been looking at the fee schedules. You know, costs do go up. There is a number, you know, there's quite an amount of resources committed to reviewing applications. And so I think you know, it is time we adjust these fees, and we appreciate your work on proposing these. And we'll.
I just wanted to point out one thing that Tyler said that struck me, that when he goes back and looks at extension of time, that he's gone back to look at extension of time back to the 80s. Did everybody hear that?
Yes,
So-
yes, it was a subject of a work group that I was on.
Okay, so,
Those
yeah,
types of extensions of time.
those types of extensions of times, you know,
It's-
I don't have a comment about the fee. I just have a comment about the comment.
Understood. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Bothering him before it's built.
And I see we have Ben Conjemi on the line. Glad you're able to join us. We'll move on to our last topic for discussion today, which is the groundwater monitoring legislation. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you, Town Supervisor and members of the board. Yes, FPM was asked to look over the local law, Chapter 173 proposed code. We had reviewed this code with the help of the town attorney's office and also with input also from Natural Resources and the town's legal consultant. And we made some minor changes to the code, most of them just for clarity. Probably the biggest change we made to the code really was the analytical lists. We were provided some of the input from Mr. Egan's office, as well as some other consultants as well. And, you know, we wanted to make sure, you know, we took into consideration, you know, many of their comments. And, one of the things that came up were the analytical requirements. Some thought, they should be a little different for the different types of facilities, particularly mining and mine reclamation is kind of one group, and then composting and mulching operation facilities as another. And, we looked through regulations. DEC has recently come out with a mining study that they plan on doing. They've developed a work plan. So we looked at a lot of the analyte groups they had in there. And so we took those analyte groups and we made them into one table for mining and mine reclamation facilities. And then we took some additional compounds that were included in Suffolk County's study of mulching and composting facilities. And we made that table as an additional list to be included for those types of facilities. So mulching and composting facilities would have to do the main list, analyte list 1, which includes, various categories of chemicals and analytes. And then the Schedule 2 list has some additional compounds which further add on to those lists.
So does that mean that the mulching and composting would be both schedules or simply Schedule 2?
It would be both schedules.
Okay.
Let's see. There's anything else.
So that was the most significant change to the previously reviewed and discussed legislation in your mind, was the additional list of analytes.
That's correct, Town Supervisor. Most of the other comments were just basically just to kind of further clarify some terms and stuff. So, not very substantive.
There was also a provision to require the applicants pay the review cost for Natural Resources Department, which is something that I'll play into Jeremy's presentation earlier that we may need to add at a future date.
Yes, that is one thing we had included as well in our discussions with some of the town's staff of the Department of Natural Resources. They had, brought that comment up, and we do understand that the town's resources are limited and tight, and this is additional more work for this group, so we thought it would be a good idea to incorporate that as well.
So I guess the one question I have is regarding the mulch production and composting. This doesn't affect local farmers, right? This would only be for production of commercial compost for sale. Is that correct? Or
that's correct. That's the intent.
Okay.
It was one of the changes to add the word commercial in the mulching production.
Right. So the idea that you'd be selling that material commercially puts you into that category that
rather
would have
than
to
farmers and maybe some residential homeowners that compost in the backyard kind of thing.
I have 3 questions or concerns. One was on the analyte list. I know that it's subject to amendment time to time, and that amendment would have to be done through a resolution. So there would be notice then to any of these facilities on there if there is going to be additions or subtractions potentially to the analyte list. So I think that's good to make sure that that's knowledgeable. Last time this came up, there's also mines that are deemed mines in the state. They're in the town of East Hampton, but that aren't actually working mines within the town of East Hampton right now. So this states that within 3 months, those mine sites have to come up with a plan and then install, I believe, within 6 months of operation, implemented within 3 months of the work plan. So that might be within 6 months. And some of these sites would be a tremendous amount of money to them while they're not actually being actively used as mine salt sites or mulching operations on there. And too, going back to those certain sites, I think 3 months is a big burden on them. I might want to give them 6 months. A lot of the sites already have their work plans in place, but ones that are not, it's almost be like they're restarting from new. But I want to have there's discussion about those type of locations in the township because we're putting a big financial burden on them to do something that they might actually not be actively using.
So would your suggestion be then for inactive sites that they submit a work plan prior to beginning operations?
I think that's appropriate, yeah. And maybe we can add that into the section. That would be 173.3A. And that's the implementation within 3 months.
What was that section, David? Yeah, I'm sorry.
173A.
Thanks.
And that we can also potentially put a time frame in that they would have to submit prior to any of active use.
So you don't think 3 months is enough time to actually implement the?
No, I'm not saying implement. I'm saying 3 months to actually in 173.2A, 3 months to, yeah, that's actually to develop the plan. So if there's some sites that haven't been actively used, you might want to give them more time.
So that
They only get 3 chances.
All right, so your 6 months is only to new sites that are inactive sites coming online again.
That's for
existing,
discussion, yeah.
so operating
I think most
sites
have a
so
work
you're going to
plan.
give operating sites under this, they have 3 months in which to, from the effective date of the chapter, in which to submit the work plan, right? But an inactive site, we're going to ask them to submit the work plan prior to activating.
That's correct.
Okay.
But then maybe give them 6 months to actually get that prepared from the active date of this chapter for inactive sites.
Kim, did you have a comment you want to make on that?
Yeah. Kim Shaw, Natural Resources. So when you're saying inactive, that just does that mean it has a valid New York State DEC permit? Because most of those permits are good for over 10 years. So if the permit's in place, even though it's not active under the current owner, maybe we should consider that whether or not it has a DEC permit.
So I have a question. If it has a DEC permit, are they allowed to proceed with the mining activities as soon as they have that permit?
Yeah. And
so they could resume
at any time.
At any time once they have the permit.
And
but if our legislation says if it's not active, well, I guess it's considered active if it has an active permit.
Correct. That was
And
being
so
my
there really
point.
isn't any. And if it doesn't have a permit, they're probably not getting one at this point, right?
Right. So there's been some changes at DEC for mining regulations. But
do we know how many sites would be considered what I'm trying to deem as in state might be inactive, might have a valid DEC permit, but aren't actually mulching or mining at the current time or haven't ever?
I could probably do a quick DEC search on their dark permits to see how many active mines we actually have in East Hampton. I think we have a handful.
And do you understand what I'm trying to state there?
Correct.
Yeah. So maybe we should circle back on that issue and
just
you can give us a little more information. I think your point, Kim, that if there's an active permit, that we have to treat, I think, all active permits the same.
That's exactly my point.
But there
I
could
would agree with that.
Yeah,
there
because
could
the
be
activity is happening.
But no, the activity is not happening. There's
But
an
if they have a
active
permit, it can at any time. And
But if they've gone through the process of getting a DEC permit, they can go through the process of putting together a work plan in 3 months.
And it might not
From
be
my
that much of a
perspective.
burden because they do have to submit monitoring plans to the state in accordance with the permit requirements.
Anyway. Yeah.
So
But then in the 173.3 is that what the DEC, does the DEC permit say for applications for permits that are active? Do they have to put monitoring wells in? Do all locations have to have monitoring wells? And if they don't, right now, this legislation would tell them that they would have to, even though they're not.
Well,
I need another word for active. I
think
they're
the
not
point
implementing their plan.
Yeah, I mean, the point of this legislation is for the town to have additional controls, safeguards over the
I understand that,
operation of
yeah.
mines within the township, and so I
There's
think
some aspects. Is it the mulching, composting? DEC doesn't really have their plan in place yet.
So David, under 173, 3D, you don't think that covers that? The scope of the work and the approved plan must be implemented. If unanticipated field conditions arise that prevent completions of any aspect of the scope of the work, the owner must notify the town's Department of Natural Resources, et cetera, within 48 hours.
Not necessarily. What I'm trying to get to is that there are sites right now that might have an active DEC permit, but that aren't actually actively mining or implementing any of their allowables that are within the township. And that if they have to have a work plan, the work plan would then make
the
them.
difference between active and operational.
Thank you. That's a better word. So sorry, I'm trying to get to, I need my thesaurus here, but that's what I'm.
So it's active, but it's maybe not operational at a given time. And you're saying you don't think that they should be burdened with, if they're not operational, having a work plan?
No, I'm saying they should have a work plan, but not about the installation of
Not have to put in monitoring wells.
okay. Yes.
Unless they're operational.
Yes, not having the conducting of the groundwater and monitoring until they become operational. And then they have to give a certain amount of time to the township, the advance notice that they're going to become operational.
Wouldn't we
I
want
think
to
it's
know?
a little tricky, I think.
Yeah, would we
I
want
just-
to know that they all have wells and that well would help us if there was any legacy issues?
We'd have to have a baseline anyway. wouldn't
Yeah. They haven't been operational.
you? But you don't know what's in the ground.
Some of the
So
chemicals
I
last
think
quite a long
anytime
time.
if I mean, so if it's not operational and they're going to begin operating without knowing what's there already,
yeah.
then when they do start monitoring,
So
it's going to be hard to determine what was there.
That might be a
What's
bigger
the
burden
result
for
of the
them.
operation? What's
Well, there's a
the result of just being there?
Kim, how much do wells cost to install on a mine site?
I don't know, Ben maybe has a better idea than I do.
Do you have any idea, Mr. Kadui?
I mean, sure. Typical, well installation costs, depending on depth of groundwater, could range from, say, $5,000 to maybe $15,000, depending on where it's located and, how deep it has to go.
And how many well sites on a typical mining operation?
You typically want at least 3, so you can define groundwater flow direction.
So would I say would it be upwards $50,000 to potential $100,000, depending on mine site locations is a financial, I don't want to say burden, but financial commitment that operators would have to do?
Yes, I mean, it would be,
Not that many truckloads of sand.
If it's wells cost 5 to 15 grand and you need 3, that's 15 to 45,000.
Right.
That's 15 to 45. Safety issues, health issues.
It's
I'm
5,
okay with
that's
that.
5, that's less than 5 truckloads of sand. I think they could
I'm okay.
manage that.
I just disagree, but that's only one section of it on there. The rest of it, I understand the implementation aspect. But I think we, got to think about individuals that aren't operational by that. And that I have been pretty steady on that.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Is this something that Nick Regano should also take a look at?
I don't think that's necessary, honestly,
Okay,
given that, FPM's produce that.
true.
those
No,
analytes and
just another set of eyes, just
and,
asking.
We also had other consultants prepare an analyte list as well
Okay.
initially. Are there any other aspects of this that the board
No, I
has
do.
questions about or
Well, I
comments
do
about?
appreciate the breaking into 2 schedules, the analyte list, and then listening to the comments, because it's not my expertise by any means. But to hear it from operators and such, then that's appreciated, going back and taking that look at them too.
Thank you.
I don't even know if I can pronounce half. Let me go 90% of them, but
Spelling test at the end.
And the idea of that was to,
Which is even scarier.
limit cost for testing to what's relevant to the activity. But the other side of that is there's just been included in this list is there's a whole lot of PFO, PFOA testing that wasn't required before that's just coming into
Well, it was
being
emerging.
requirement.
It was an emerging chemical of concern,
Yeah.
and it's clearly emerged.
And the
It's fully
DEC just changed the
emerged.
regulations on it as well.
Yep,
Yeah.
which we've included in this because by the time this is adopted, they'll be in effect. So we didn't want to have to change it that soon.
They've strengthened the regulations.
Okay, any other questions? Ben, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Appreciate your time and
Thank you.
input. And that brings us up to liaison reports.
Great. So I was going to start with Human Services. In our senior transportation department, we're extending some of our hours for transportation, particularly as it relates to medical appointments. So we now have the ability to go back to take clients to Riverhead, which we hadn't been able to do since the pandemic. So we're offering trips to Riverhead for doctors Monday through Thursday from 11:30 to 1:30. So if folks are interested, they should reach out to the town's senior transportation office at 631-324-4443. This Friday, September 23rd, we're going to have a presentation. It's coming from the National Council on Aging, and it's a fall prevention presentation. It's at 11 o'clock at the Senior Center, since falls are a major concern for older adults. The Sarah Cohen from Stony Brook Southampton Hospital will be there to discuss falls and what you can do to decrease your fall risk and how you can stay active and take charge of your well-being. And then talking about well-being, we still are offering the benefits of massage for the 60+ community. That's offered on Wednesdays from 1 to 2 in the activity room at the Senior Center on Springs Fireplace Road. The next one is actually tomorrow. For the schedule, you can call Human Services. And we're also in discussions with the folks at Ashwell Hall. We want to bring back the program where we all offer wellness activities at Ashwell Hall. Diane Patrizio has spoken to the executive director of the YMCA and also to Southampton Hospital for instructors. So I'll be able to announce some of those programming. I think we're going to start couple times a month this year and then go into a more regular schedule in January.
Kathy, could we have the massage therapist come to town hall?
Yeah, we should think about that.
Anyone over 60 can get a massage.
Yes, exactly.
Sorry,
Yeah,
David.
You're the only one that gets left out, David. So just switching gears to the new senior center, I know I had mentioned that we were in schematic design for that. R2 went on to say yesterday that we're hopefully going to be seeing in October 3 distinct design concepts, and then we will narrow that down hopefully in November down to 1 concept, and they can take it from there. We had our sustainability workshop yesterday. Yeah, that was great. Kate had an opportunity to join us, as did Natural Resources, Kim and Samantha Klein, as well as Jeremy and Eric, and the folks from Human Services. And we had R2 there and 4 of our subcontractors. And we talked about the path to net zero. And I have to say, mind blown. I mean, the things that they, got into. We talked about, passive, how we site the building, orientation, massing, insulated exterior walls, natural ventilation, active, having be an all electric building, which we've talked about, smart controls, heat pumps. One of the projects that one of the subcontractors worked on was a public building, and there was a light on the wall, and if the light was red, the windows had to stay shut, but if the lights were green, you could open the windows for natural ventilation. I mean, that's how far technology has gone. And one of the landscape designer talked about at a project that R2 did in Orlando, where they had plant walls that the smart technology could tell them what section of the plant wall needed irrigation. And
that's vertical. Plant
yes, that's vertical plant walls.
I mean, it was just incredible. So then we talked about on-site renewables, solar and battery storage, and then off-site renewables. Was there an opportunity for community solar? Or what came up was the Butler Building at the Terry King Ball Field at Sport Time leases. Is there an ability to put solar on that? And I think that's something we need to explore. We also talked about occupant wellness, how we're going to, increase ventilation and filtration, increases the quality, of the, gives us high air quality, thermal comfort, particularly since this is a building for seniors, and access to outdoor spaces. And then we talked about daylight levels in occupied spaces and the visual connection to the natural environment, which we've, heard resoundingly during the community engagement, how important that was. So that was pretty neat. Last week, I had my disability advisory board met. We had taken the summer off, and we had gotten a request from the planning board to weigh in on an application for the Springs General Store. And Glenn will be sending a letter this week to the planning department. We also talked about there had been a handicap parking spot over on 27 by Amber Waves. It was just to the west of their driveway. And I guess when water mains went in and the hydrant went in, we lost a handicap parking spot. So now the only one there is across the street. And that's not, wise or safe or whatever. So I'm going to be sending a letter on behalf, board's comfortable, on behalf of the Disability Advisory Board to New York State DOT. Obviously I'll consult with Steve Lynch and Fred Thiel to say we would like to have a handicap parking spot there now to the east of the driveway, and that would be really helpful. There's also been a request that we bolster our presence for the Disability Advisory Board on the town website and kind of give more of an explanation as to what we do, and have a link particularly for the summer months, regarding the beach wheelchair that's available at many of our beaches. And at our next meeting, they'd like us to invite Kim Shaw, our natural resources director, because folks want to better understand the obstacles we're facing as far as putting beach mats down at bay beaches. So there's issues with the DEC. So we want to do a little fact finding and understand where that's coming from.
As far as wheelchairs, we redid all the beaches web pages, and any place where there's a wheelchair available, that's actually on the town's website. So that was updated and included as part of an update of all of our listings.
Yeah, so I think maybe what we'll do then is we'll go back and look as to where they are and put that list on the Disability Advisory Board page with links to those beaches on the town website. LTV met last week as well, and it was nice. I got to go in person for the first time, and they're ahead of their strategic plan. They've had an incredibly successful season. They had the Hampton Jazz Fest, they had multiple performances. They had the Hamptons Festival of Music a couple of weeks back. They've done a lot of partnerships with Guildhall, since Guildhall has been, collaborating with a number of different venues. Artists Alliance had an art show there. The Retreat had documentary screening there. So that's been tremendous. And people walk in and just didn't know it was here. So there's been a lot of eye-opening. They've also been renting out the studios and that has been a great source of revenue for them. They received a $25,000 grant for a lighting board, and they're expected that to be delivered in December. And they're in the process of reviewing the bylaws for potential updates. And last night, the East Hampton CAC met, and we talk a lot about our roads in our East Hampton CAC, and one intersection in particular, the Stephen Hans Path, Cedar Street, all northwest, that area. And I had spoken to Steve Lynch, and he's got plans for that intersection in front of the new substation, and he's hoping that that's going to make it safer. I think he's making the road a little bit wider, and that's planned for this year because the money's coming out of this year's budget. We also talked about the intersection of Floyd Street and Springs Fireplace Road. There had been an accident there. I think it was July, quite frankly. And telephone pole is split, and they had to, it's secured, but the new pole went in, and Verizon is still on the old pole. And I know, David, you had sponsored, double pole legislation, and I was going to see if I get the town attorney's office looped in, because Verizon is telling Steve, yeah, it's on our list, but it's been on their list for quite some time. And it's whoever takes the last, I guess, wires off the pole is responsible for removing the pole. So
there's a fee schedule for every day.
Absolutely.
That they don't change it. They have a certain amount of days and every day after. So it
I
might be the first time we do it, but it's not the only place we
yeah.
should do
So
it.
I will touch
There are a
base.
couple of them right now in town that I've noticed lately.
Yeah.
We had also discussed the intersection of Spring Close Highway, Town Lane, and Jenny's Path. There had been a request for stop signs on Town Lane. I spoke to Chief Sarlo and to Steve Lynch. The chief, I asked him to look at the number of motor vehicle accidents there. There've been 6 accidents since January of 2017, so that doesn't really trigger the need for stop signs there. But I think we could, after speaking to Steve, he's going to have his crew go out. The lines for the stop signs have really faded. So, and I've noticed in some parts of town they've put wider stop lines, and that because that road it's not lined up, it's
Right.
kind
And
of
the stop sign is back
and it's
from the intersection.
and it's in front of
not right
the
at the
tree,
corner.
and there's with the foliage, so he's either got to trim the tree back a little bit, or he's got to reposition the stop sign. So Steve is on it, which was great. So he's working on that. We were also talking about invasive plants, bamboo, and I think it's Tree of Life. Is that what?
Yeah.
So
Tree of Heaven.
Tree of Heaven. And so, Mark Abramson had shared with me New York State's prohibited and regulated invasive plants, and the CAC, Hampton CAC, would like us to take it a step further and maybe have some kind of prohibitions. I think there's 2 towns in Suffolk County that have legislation about, particularly for bamboo.
Yeah.
I thought we already had.
So
legislation.
we don't.
State
So
has it.
We don't have
so
it.
that's something that they want to pursue. I'm also going to reach out to Chief Sarlo, because apparently the speeding on Cedar Street, particularly towards Old Orchard, cars are being passed, and maybe we can put some patrol cars there just to let remind folks to slow down. And then we had a really robust discussion about community housing and how, folks are, need to get the word out. They're in their everyday interactions, they feel there's still a lot of people that don't know about the referendum coming up on November 8th. And our next meeting is going to be October 3rd.
Yeah. So with regard to that, we are going to be putting out some fact sheets, if you will, just making people aware of the referendum, what it means, what it's about. There'll be a series of those. We put one out initially. We're doing follow-ups beginning, I think, next week. And they'll be, I think, pretty much weekly. Each one with a slightly different perspective and stance about, how it affects the community, what the importance of it is, and what it would mean if it was available to have that community housing fund in place. Who's affected? I think that's one of the things that people maybe don't fully comprehend, is that this is affecting everyone from nurses and technicians to school teachers, first responders, and just all the way through the list. This is our community really at this point.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm seeing if I can find it. In one of our discussions with the Route 114 project group, Katie Casey shared where the folks in the East Hampton Housing Authority, where they work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, the backbone of our community.
Absolutely.
And what Katie was saying last night is like the discussions that she has with folks is like, so, your septic is backing up in your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
How long do you want to wait?
Right.
You know, do you want someone to come today to see if they could take a look
You
at
have a
it?
pipe burst.
Or is it, or are you
You
good
did
waiting,
that,
or,
right?
you know, or you need blood drawn? Do you want to be able to go this week? Or do you want to wait till next month to get your
And one
blood
of the
drawn?
labs
You
just
wanna
are
drive 2 hours
closed.
west.
Right.
Just closed.
So,
Well,
you know,
So the East Hampton Blood Lab, they're closed this month because
Right.
of staffing issues. So that's blood work and radiology.
You know, do you think Katie presented that to the town board at one point in time?
Yes, it was part of the
Um,
community housing fund plan that at that point it was presented.
So it's in that plan. So we should pull that out because I think that's an important point that people have said.
That is
well,
going to be in.
Who's going to get the
So
housing?
I will circulate those.
Okay.
You know, it's sort
Yeah,
of like
I think
bullet
that's-
points. And then there'll be a QR code on that
Okay.
that you could also click on that will give you much more in-depth information. So I'll circulate that. We've been working on that in my office.
Okay. Thank you. Great. Thank you, Peter.
and then what I just wanted to touch on, and I mentioned it last week about the working group we had put together for attract and retain for, you know, it was made up of folks from the Department Heads Association and the CSCA, and I was the liaison over the summer, and they put together some recommendations. And, you know, obviously, and Jeremy pulled some census data for me, which I found pretty interesting. It came from the American Community Survey, and I guess it's an estimate that's done every 5 years. And the total population of our community has grown roughly 25%, but the population of 16 and over, which is considered our workforce population, has only increased 3%. And he looked in that time frame, government workers in the town during this time span decreased 2.8% from 15.3% of total workforce to 12.5% of the total workforce, which is a 17% decrease, which I thought was just a fascinating statistic. And part of it is because, you know, we're at the mercy of civil service and the way and how they've structured what starting salaries are. And they just are so out of touch and they're not competitive with what's happening now. And, you know, if you work for the town and say you work in the highway department and you make $49,000 a year, and you get your taxes taken out, your health insurance taken out, that means your take-home pay is just under $2,300, which means that if you're supposed to only use a third of your salary for housing, that means you have $763 a month for housing. And I had heard from, a staff member that just retired. She was looking for a house and it was to rent, and it was $5,000 a month to rent a house here.
I've seen in the
And
papers.
we brought that up last night at the CAC, and JB DeSantos, who's a real estate broker, and said, you know, try finding a house for $5,000 a month, more or less. It's more like 6 or 7. It's like, who has that kind of money? And what that means for the future of being able to, you know, staff our departments and deliver the services that we need to deliver to the community, because our populations grow 25%. And yet, you know, right now we have 34 open positions in town government. And that's just between, you know, CSDA and appointed positions.
So if you look at overall housing, about 6% of the housing within East Hampton is considered affordable. And that's, you know, again, going by the standard of you don't pay more than 33% of your income for housing. So, you know, that's why it's so critically important that we figure out this housing crisis and that we make available, because that really is what makes the town run. And it's not just the town municipality. I mean, you know, as Kate said, you know, the lab up the road is closed for a month because they don't have staffing. You know, it's services to our community. What kind of community are we going to have if there's no one able to service it. And everybody has to come in on that road. That's just not a sustainable platform. So
And
we need
Kate
to
and I
rebalance things a bit.
were at the Aquabonic Protection Committee meeting, and I'm sure you'll talk about it. And there were 3 different presentations, and those, on water quality for Aquabonic Harbor, and they were all paid for with water quality, money from CPF. And now I've heard somebody use the expression that this is the community housing is really the sister, fund to the, where would we have been if we didn't have, water quality, the technical advisory
Sure.
committee.
And just CPF in general.
And CPF in general.
Yeah, and the CPF was started for environmental sustainability, but now we need, what's the point of sustaining the environment if we don't sustain our community? So this is definitely hand in hand.
Yeah. And going back to, some of the things that came out of my discussions with the folks from the Attract and Retain Working Group, they put forward some recommendations. Now, these recommendations aren't looked at as something that could be implemented in all one year. I mean, maybe there's things that the board could implement in the short term. And it wasn't, meant to supersede any of the agreements that we have with our bargaining units. But, we do, and I know, Peter, that, you've already mentioned some of the things to look for in the budget coming out next, I guess, a week from tomorrow.
We expect to have it published and circulated on Monday.
Oh, excellent.
I think set the 28th. Yeah.
That's great news.
It'll be out the 28th, Wednesday, the 28th.
Yeah. So
I'll start printing it the 26th. It'll take a little while.
So some of the things that came out is, which you're addressing in the budget, is we need to provide greater financial stability for our employees, for our staff, and whether that's an across the board salary increase, re-examining pay rates title by title, which is something that the Human Resources Department is doing already, canvassing lists from other towns and villages to establish the rate of pay, because we've said this before, because of where we live, we need to be, more than competitive with, neighboring municipalities. Also came out if we could offer flex spending programs for folks as a way to pay dependent care, health care, adoption expenses with pre-tax dollars, and offering different levels of insurance coverage. Some of the younger members of town staff, maybe don't need the Cadillac of health insurance, which we're very privileged to have. And rather than, if you're a tier 6, you're paying about $500 a month for health insurance for family coverage, maybe that they could, take a coverage that was had a smaller premium. The other thing that they've talked about was offering, some low to no cost alternatives, which would work from home, flex time, 4-day work week, and also resuming the prior practice of having a paid half hour for lunch. So right now, if you work 40 hours a week, your lunch is mandatory. So you're actually really working, or not working,
you're at work
42.5 hours. And Kate and I were talking, that about, how the culture has changed. And you had mentioned when you were over at the school that teachers don't want to commute anymore. They don't want to drive an hour and a half to get to work. It's like 20 minutes. And that's part of the problem, is that, the trade parade, it's only gotten, more and more painful. And I talked to the superintendent of the spring school, and she gets up at like 3:45 in the morning in order to get up and to get on the road and to beat the traffic. I mean, what kind of quality of life is that, right? So, anything that we can do. And then 2 other things came out. One was to reestablish the standalone Human Resources Department. I guess under the Wilkinson administration, I guess we had a 5-person Human Resources Department. And now back then in a cost-saving measure, it was moved under to the finance department. And
So spoiler alert, I have the budget, I have another position in human
Awesome.
resources, budget, another full-time.
That's great because, I think that Kathleen, first of all, she's always available and she works around the clock. And
Dedicated.
Very grateful.
Fantastic employee.
But, right now we have 1.5 people. And, during the season, May to September, we have 576 people on payroll. And, and then in the off season year round, I think it's closer to 234 people. That includes, PD and as well. And, I would, the group advocated for having a separate human resources department, and that's something that I feel very strongly about. And then the last thing that came up was, civil service and how challenging it is to work with Suffolk County Civil Service, how long it takes them to approve a title. And, Chief Sarlo was saying at a meeting that, they'll ask him for a job description for a police officer. He'll go online, he'll cut and paste it off Suffolk County Civil Service and send it back to them. I mean, it's just like make work. And I know, Peter, you've spoken with the East End mayors and supervisors, and I don't know if it's something that we could really, make a push for over the next few years as to, I think there's a couple of towns that have done that.
So fortuitously, when I was at CCOM's picnic on Saturday, one of their new board members worked with civil service in Nassau, and there were towns that broke off. And there was a lot of discussion about the unsustainable base pays, that it's the same in Nassau, where many towns feel like the county civil service system does not work for them and for the needs of their own community. So I think it is a discussion.
And I think, all the 5 of these 10 towns have, some frustration with the current system, and there has been some discussions, somewhat informal at this point, but as to how we could address that and how we can improve the way things work, because it's difficult enough to find an employee to fill a position. And then if they have to wait 6 weeks or 8 weeks to get an answer back from civil services to some
They can't
aspect,
wait. They shouldn't wait.
they're not going to wait. And so we've lost potential employees.
And even their levels of starting salary is from, the 50s already.
Right.
Has the conversation with Suffolk County
So
gone anywhere?
there has been, some, they've had some changes over there as well. Over the last couple of years in terms of leadership. And, right now we're dealing with the fact that Suffolk County's computer systems are not working. And we have tests that were supposed to be given. The times have gone by. They can't even get the information about where and when the tests. And so we're working with Legislator Fleming's office to try and overcome that. So it's just another aspect of difficulty, I guess.
I didn't know they were still
challenge
out.
that we face. It's just become that much worse now with the computer glitches. So, we have people who are looking to take tests and be certified for the positions that they're seeking, whatnot.
Yeah. No, so,
It's all interrelated.
Yeah,
so
it is.
It's all interrelated. And I think, the basic problem for us is really the geographical one, and the fact that working people can't afford to live in town anymore. And so they have to come in from elsewhere, and we need to rebalance that and have a better balance of live here, work here. And it benefits everybody in the community when the people who service the community live in the community. There's a greater commitment to the local community.
Right.
There's greater access and responsiveness. And that's important, if and when we get a hurricane. Who's going to be living here to cut those trees out of the roadway? You know,
Northeast.
Well,
they're
I
not going to be
know,
able to come in from outside.
Buzzy brought up we're looking, one of the openings we have is in the fire marshal's office, and they've got to be able to respond to a fire in 30 minutes.
Right.
And, we're getting applications from people that live in Smithtown. And, they can be on the road in 30 minutes, but they can't be here in 30 minutes. So it's been a real challenge, but we're so fortunate we have such a professional and dedicated staff, and we just need to get figure this out. I'm looking forward to the budget next week, and bringing people's salaries up and recognizing folks. I think that could be with more help in human resources. I'd like to see some recognition programs for folks that have been here, and do it so that we can provide the services that the community expects. That's what I got for today.
Thanks, Kathy.
Yeah, I have a short liaison report. My first one is I wanted to apologize to Hugh King and then to the board and public, but when he was talking about October 1st, which is the History Festival that's going to be at Mulford Farm, I did mention about Tim Dring, who is an expert in the life-saving service. He is speaking at the life-saving station on October 29th, so everyone changed their schedules. I know you're looking forward to it, so I apologize to them and you. So that's October 29th. I had it wrong in my schedule. I want to let everyone know that tomorrow we'll be discussing with representatives of the village, Department of Natural Resources, the Cove Hall, and the pipe treatment. We're having a meeting on some of the next steps for that, getting into the actual design of that location, the next steps for final engineering also. And I'll report back to the board about that in the coming weeks. Kate and I have been discussing the Springs Library also. Just want to let the board know, and it might have been discussed because the initial projects through the property management, but the project the board took on was upgrading the heating system, which is going to be a failing heat system to a heat pump, which was moved forward by Sylvia. That there is going, based on some delay in procurement of equipment, that installation is not going to happen until November. So there could be about 4 weeks here that it could be a little chillier than normal would be in there. And that we're going to try our best with our staffing right now to make sure that everything's not winterized, but we're going to be monitoring the weather, and that the historical society and the library, the ladies and gentlemen over there do know that. And Kate,
and the hardy folks that run that library are saying we'll put sweaters
on. So
and stay open for the public.
Yeah, but that's all moving forward on there also. So thank you. Lastly, I will have some resolutions on today. They're in reference to the Stephen Hand Path ball fields, which is an impending project going to be starting upcoming in the next few weeks. I want to thank the board also as part of that initially budgetarily, because inflation and other aspects were going up high. We had to take out for some budgetary constraints on their options that the total board feels like they want to put back in, and anything from scoreboards to walking trails to batting cages to make this site a very substantial and going to be a well-respected facility for our youth. So I thank all the board members. Kathy, I know you started this relocation committee, and to the board members all the way down for reevaluating where we think that the residents' money should be spent. And we have one chance to do this right. And I think what we're deciding to do today by adding some of these back into it is going to be a great pleasure to the youth and the kids of the community. So that's on for later today. So I thank the board
I'm
members.
excited about that. And it's like, let's get the project finished, as opposed to leaving those things dangling and having to come back and do it. And I think, I know the committee felt strongly about batting cages, and it'll be nice to have the pavilion there and the walking trails. We already know that the walking trails around the soccer fields get used, and
you get well used now.
And the volleyball course get really well used too. So
absolutely.
So that's what I have. Thank you.
Steve. Sylvia?
Sure. The Anti-Bias Task Force met yesterday, and we talked about with Chief Mike Tracy, who's really been in charge of all the diversity shows that we've been doing. The next diversity show is with Tom House. That's going to be later this month. And he's going to be interviewed by Matt Lowndes of LTV, who's going to help intersperse films of the first Pride Parade into the show. And then the following show is going to be the Ruta 27, which is Louise Bergerson and Andrew Visconti. That's their second show that they're doing about the program that they're doing English, or any language into, but Spanish into English language, and they're doing it at the high school. So that show is going to air probably, that'll get done in October, and then later will be the Steve Ludson show, which we've been trying to get him. We're just trying to find space. I will say LTV has been so busy that we can't find space for some of the local programming. So we've had to put off some of the diversity show. He's going to be talking, Steve Ludson will be talking about the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., of which he is a board member. We had member Catherine King discuss about a workshop that she just held with the faculty and staff at the Montauk School. As you know, Superintendent Jack Perna is also a member, and he had asked Catherine to do this workshop. It's about hidden biases. And it was a 3-hour course that she got 100% positivity feedback. The program is a non-judgmental and explores awareness without being preachy, and provides a safe place for people to discuss and understand some of issues where you might not even know you're biased, but it's sort of came the hidden bias part of it. So Catherine has graciously agreed to do a workshop for the members of the Anti-Bias Task Force, and we're just trying to find a date to do it. If anybody on the podium would like to join in, we'll let you know when those dates are. It's 3 hours. It's usually she likes to do it in the mornings, 9 to 12, before everyone gets sleepy after lunch, is how she put it. The Wayne-Scott Tree Society also met, and I've been working with them, and I have spoken to Becky Hansen about adding to the budget in the highway department consulting and planting of new trees. How we do that we have someone that's in the field of telling us how to plant them correctly and the maintenance that is needed for these newer trees, and then to also look at some of the older trees. What I'm noticing going around town is that this drought has really put our street trees under stress. And so that's part of the character of our community. And so I think we need to make sure that we have a budget that takes care of our street trees wherever they are. I know the Wayne-Scott Tree Society has been pushing for it in Wayne-Scott, but I think it's an overall vision that we need to have for the town. I know.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
Well, some money in for Wayne-Scott trees for trees.
So I'm also trying to get, I'll have some numbers. This was Becky Hansen asking that we get some numbers from the village on their bid and who they're using, and it may inform us a little bit more.
I think I put $10,000 in for the year.
Okay.
And that's an initial fund. You keep in mind that when the wind farm goes online, that we had dedicated a significant amount of money to projects specifically for Wayne-Scott, because they are hosting that cable landing.
Correct.
And so there's several $1 million there that will be available over the years to come.
So but even in purchasing trees, I might even advocate for a little bit more money. In purchasing,
more than 2 million?
No,
5 million, Peter.
More, yeah, it's 5. I think it's 5 in the.
But I think the first 2 years it's available.
Yeah.
Right. Initially, right.
So because I'm seeing that there are some street trees that are in the East Hampton, non-incorporated parts of East Hampton, and even in Amagansett. We're lucky to have groups like LVIS and AVIS and that really help out in keeping our trees pruned properly. But Kevin Cobb has done an excellent job, and it's been informing us about some of the stresses that he's seen with these trees and branches falling off, which means the trees, something's wrong with it, may have to come down. So, I think as much help as we can get for trees would be something I would advocate. The business committee is something I like to discuss with the board. Even last year, they wanted to do, they were concerned about being more holiday forward, I guess is the way to put it, so that people are out here and have more of a holiday spirit. We know we do the trees and we put the lighting on the trees. The Montauk Chamber would like to also add lighted snowflakes on the light poles in addition to the trees. And so I did ask Tony Littman and Barry Bennett about what they would need to be able to put those lights on the light poles. It's $120 per pole for them to get the electrical lines there. And the Montauk Chamber would buy the actual snowflakes that go up on it. The Montauk Chamber would like the lighting poles to be not only on Main Street, but also on the Circle and at the harbor area. So I'm trying to get the.
So I think there's 120 poles for just the downtown area.
Just the downtown?
I think there's 120 total in that.
Do they want every pole?
You wouldn't have to do
I got
that.
outreach by Jen Folks.
Oh, you did too?
Yeah,
Okay.
this was,
Yeah.
they brought this to us
A year
last
ago.
year.
Yes,
Right,
they
but very
late.
And
So they would like us to move, it's almost October. So in order for us to get Barry to be able to put that in his schedule, for them to order the lights, I think that we
Are
need.
they providing the lights?
They
and
are
we're
providing, correct,
making the connections?
correct.
So I got an email from Jen Folks and that was on there. So since it's Montauk, and also buildings and grounds, I can look into exactly what poles they want. 'Cause they might not want all of them. I can find out what the budgetary constraint would be from the town if the town wanted to do it per the 100 times the $120.
Right,
$112.
112 per pole.
Okay.
So I just think we need to jump on it if we're going to be able to do this. And you think there are how many? Because I haven't gotten a definitive
Well, I mean,
number back.
as David says, you don't have to put them on every pole either. You can do every
they're
third
asking
pole
for
or something.
sponsorship for each sponsor a snowflake is
Right.
how they're sending it out.
I know in Greenport, they put out
membership
various lights on the road there.
Okay. I've been working with Leo and he's and Tony and Barry, and we've been kind of going around. So it looks like we're all involved in making sure that Montauk has a.
What do you want me to, or do you want to? I mean, just let me.
We should probably have one person sort of.
Okay, I'll talk to you about it then.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. And that's it for my report.
Thanks, Sylvia. Kate?
Yes, thank you, Peter. The Acabonic Protection Committee, I have a couple announcements first. The Acabonic Protection Committee is hosting a coastal assessment and resiliency, the CARP forum at the Art Center at Duck Creek in Springs, which is at 127 Squaw Road. Tomorrow, Wednesday, the 21st at 5:30, Sam Klein from Natural Resources will be presenting the details of the newly adopted CARP plan. And it's important to Springs folks because it includes areas of Girard Drive and Louse Point. The Springs Library has another free authors talk at Ashwa Hall on Wednesday, September 28th at 6 p.m. This time they're hosting best-selling author Tom Clavin. And again, that's at Ashwa Hall. He is a former editor and reporter for the New York Times. He's an award-winning author of 18 nonfiction books on American military history, sports, and entertainment. He will be discussing his novel, Lighting Down, the incredible true story of a group of captured World War II pilots who banded together to survive and went through one of the camps and lived to tell the story about it. So that will be, again, Wednesday, September 28th at 6 p.m. On Sunday, I attended the Acabonic Protection Committee yearly membership meeting that Kathy mentioned. They had a great presentation, 3 different presentations on water quality. One is monitoring water quality. One is the planting of sugar kelp farming that's going on there. And the last one I want to talk about was a presentation by 2 high school students, Sky Tasman and Nick Cooper, who were amazing, on their coordination and efforts with the SPAT program in Acabonic. With all of these programs, of course, with the cooperation of the town, the folks there were very appreciative of the cooperation of the town and the help that they get. I would like to have Sky and Nick come and present to the town board their program. They were fantastic, and they are also looking to recruit other high school students and young people to get involved with these programs. As Sky said, because this is our future.
They're 2 very gifted kids.
They're wonderful.
Yeah.
I don't want them to go to college.
Selfishly.
It's very
Well, I think
selfishly.
Marissa did a tremendous
Marissa
job
was
too,
fantastic.
talking about kelp from, and I think maybe it's time to have an aquaculture day at a work session. And
I think so.
Get an update from Barley and from Marissa on.
Well, I think
We had
that's
some success with the sugar kelp this year.
Yeah, they did.
October.
Marissa was also excellent.
Fish.
Yeah, we should actually do that so folks know what's going on. I had no idea of the healing qualities of sugar kelp, loading in nitrogen from our waters and putting back oxygen. It was really fascinating. The last thing, I went on Saturday to the Concerned Citizens of Montauk yearly picnic at Fort Pond House. Again, their hospitality, I thank them for their hospitality. It was a wonderful event. And again, they also, with town assistance, there's the water testing that they do and the floating kelp beds that are ongoing out there in Montauk as well. And again, a lot of appreciation and thanks to the town for their contributions. Lastly, just for folks to go to our town website on the homepage and sign up for either email or text emergency alerts for any storms that may be coming up. We're in that season right now, and there is so much information on storm preparedness on the town's website. We have a dedicated emergency preparedness website, includes information on what to pack in a go bag and many other resources. And I hope the residents of the town visit that site and sign up for the alerts. And that's what I have.
Thanks, Kate. As you all know, it's budget season and we're continuing to work on the budget. We just did our first run of the numbers after putting in all the wishes and requests. And my focus has been on really addressing wages within the town, to invest in our human resources, our staff, and to bring them up to a more competitive level, as we've heard earlier today. All the comments and discussion about the impacts of housing, the impacts of commuting, and the fact that East Hampton has fallen a bit behind other municipalities. My primary focus this year in the budget will be to address those wages, and there are going to be some significant changes coming. The first round of the budget has us squeaking under the 2% tax cap. So at this point, we think we'll be able to deliver a budget with all of these wage increases and additional hires, promotions, and merit pay under the 2% tax cap. We have had some additional demands, and obviously there's been inflation. So many of the supplies that we purchase on a regular basis have gone up significantly during the year, but we've had better than projected revenues as well in some areas, particularly building permits and mortgage tax. These are not sources that you can rely upon year to year because there's fluctuation in those based on market conditions. So we've seen, the markets have been somewhat slower. but this will help buffer and offset some of those costs due to the fact that we have very robust balances in our various funds. We can apportion some modest part of reserves to keep us under the 2% tax cap. As I mentioned earlier, spoiler alert, human resources, we got another full-time position, animal control, ordinance enforcement, 2 additional full-time police officers, 2 laborers in sanitation, new environmental tech for land management, and an adjudication bureau staff member. In addition to the 9 positions, there are 16 promotions of staff and 22 extraordinary services merit awards for town employees. I have to say that we are incredibly fortunate here with the staffing that we have. We have so many really dedicated employees, and I think it's really important that we recognize the value of them on many levels, and that we make sure that they're compensated in a way that's appropriate and competitive, and that we acknowledge them in that way. So that's the primary focus. That we are also in this budget going to be funding a variety of community organizations, not-for-profits. Will be giving assistance to them as we have in past years, and in some cases increasing those amounts. There are still impacts from the pandemic financially for these organizations and demands upon these organizations. We've added the Montauk Food Pantry as well to a budget item. Other food pantries are already in that list. And, again, that's, I think, an acknowledgement of the fact that there are still many in our community that are faced with food insecurity. And it's really important for us to keep our community together. And that requires additional assistance. And so that will be presented. I look forward to having it out. I believe we'll be starting the print run on Monday, 26th, and should have it to you all and the public on the 28th, Wednesday, 28th. The Town Property Management Committee met yesterday. I wasn't in attendance, but I know they were discussing the proposed pavilion and restrooms at the Boys and Girls Harbor. We had received comments back from the planning department that the siting as proposed was acceptable, and they supported that with the caveat that the building be moved slightly further away from the parking area, and that there be some sort of barrier, telephone pole curb stop or split rail fencing to prevent vehicles from driving out onto the field. But I will give you an update next week on the finer points of the discussions there. And that's all I have for today.
The other thing, Peter, when you're talking about additional assistance, it's my understanding that the supplemental pay that we give to full-time employees.
That'll hit this week.
It's coming.
Yeah, it'll be this next pay. It's in between pay period. It will be out this coming week, I think. I know there were some employees that were anxious to get it, and I hope they all appreciate that. Again, that's a supplemental payment of $3,000.
2,500, right?
2,500. I'm sorry, it's 2,500, and there will be an additional amount that goes into base pay in the upcoming budget. So we have a few resolutions. Kathy, I think you have the first.
Starting with Resolution 2022-1165 is to appoint temporary part-time office assistant in the town clerk's office, Christine Gowdy. And this is at a blended rate that will be calculated by the finance department.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
2022-1166 is to appoint temporary part-time office assistant in the town clerk's office, Tricia Oshesky. And this, again, is at the blended hourly rate calculated by the finance department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes.
1167 is approval of various special event permits, and this is for the Montauk Skate Park Coalition, the Andy Kessler Memorial Skate Contest at the Montauk Skate Park, Lars Simonson Skate Park, Saturday, September 24th, from noon to 6:30.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
I'd like to offer Resolution 2022-1168. This is a status change from seasonal to part-time for employees in the Parks Department as listed below, retroactive to September 18th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
1169 is a status change from seasonal to part-time employees in the recreational department, again, retroactive to September 18th, 2022, as listed below.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
1170 is a title change in status for recreational employees in the Parks Department for summer 2022. This will be retroactive to September 19th, 2022 of the individuals below at the pay rate stated.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
1171 is Stephen Hans Path Ball Fields. This is the Land Tech Group Incorporated. This is change order number 1. Where we'll be including, whereas recommended that additional items to the bid specifications, including asphalt walking path, 2 scoreboards, 2 batting cages, and a picnic pavilion at additional cost of $355,457.50, bringing the total contract cost to $4,052,176.25.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
1172 is a separate proposal from LK McLean for construction support services for the Stephen Hans ball field. And this comes to a total overall anticipated cost of $50,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
1173 is a budget modification from Buildings and Grounds, full-time salaries of $50,000 to heat $50,000. And I think that is something that what you will hear about in the budget, and we're hearing a lot of now.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
1174 is to amend Chapter 240 Vehicles and Traffic to provide for installations of stop signs at certain intersections in Waynescott, the town of East Hampton. This would be Town Line Road North, Daniels Lane, Town Line Road North, Hedges Lane, Town Line Road North, Main Street, Town Line Road North, Parsonage Lane. That is correct. Yes.
I'll second. I just want to point out that the CAC asked that Hedges Lane actually not have a stop sign on it, but I would like to see if that stop sign is helpful. I would find it helpful as I drive there.
So during discussion here, I saw that also. I've driven it. I've talked to the chief of police. I'm wondering also the same thing, if the Hedges Lane would be necessary backed up. Do we try it, remove it, or do we keep it out and then add it in later? That's what I would like to discuss with the board also. Peter, I know you were leading that, Peter. I don't know.
But I would second this, and I just want to know that we did hear the Waynescott CAC.
Well, do board members feel that hedges should be left off for now or not? Because we could simply strike it and.
I think I personally would strike it, and let's see how this goes. And if this relieves a lot of that pressure that's there. There is I think you might get backup of traffic from Hedges to Main Street, and then we could add it back in if we see that it's necessary. But that's my personal belief, but I'll let others. I know you've been leading this, Peter, for discussion. I think it's going to be harder to take it back than to add it in.
Anybody else?
I think, hearing what the people who actually use those roads every day is meaningful. So I would be okay with striking it based on the CAC's recommendation. They are on those roads.
Right.
True.
Yeah. No, and I'm just trying to pull up the intersection on my phone.
It's relatively close. It's maybe
And does it
100,
have any effect of
200 yards.
what Sagaponack is doing? Is there any?
No, because Sagaponack comes in, it would be a 3-way intersection where Town Line is the main road. So they have a stop sign at Hedges. It wouldn't affect them. There's already one there. I'm trying to recall though, are they putting one on the south side? Because if they're putting one on the south side, we should definitely put one on the north side.
That's the thing. That's the question.
Well, so could we pass this without hedges and then add it back in since we had a public hearing already, John?
I mean,
We need to in the future.
if they're putting it, having spoken to Steve about this, if they're putting it on their side at hedges, then
Or 3 ways the way to do
we
it.
have to do a
If I
three-way.
can
So we
find,
have to know what
They
doing.
are doing it, right? Correct?
I wonder.
We
if
know
they-
that they're doing it.
We don't know about the
we don't know if they're doing one on the south side of town, heading south on Town Line Road. I don't recall.
They have one heading east at that intersection on their side.
Okay, so what am I?
But again, it's something that I think we should move forward promptly.
Will we need another public
I
hearing?
think you would need another hearing to get it
Well,
back in.
what if we did this? If
Not
we
have it?
passed it the way
No,
it is?
to
No,
leave it out now and then put
add
it in
back
later.
in,
I was
yeah.
gonna say, what if we passed it as is with all 4 in there, with Hedges Lane in there?
We could amend it.
And then amend it on the 4th or the 6th if we find out, you know,
That makes sense.
You can do that.
it's
I
probably
mean,
easier that way, because then you wouldn't have to rehear it. You just-
Right. So pass it as is and we can amend it to strike it.
Yeah. it's-
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're
Yeah,
going
you have
to
to
put it
remove it out
in,
of the
so
code.
you want to, yeah, if you're going to amend it to take it out, if you're taking it, adopting it now and then want to take it out, you'd have to
Have another
do
hearing.
another hearing.
Either way.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
the only alternative you could do is to, I don't know how quickly you could find
Well,
out
we
from the
could
village
table
and
it,
just
but
hold
I
it.
kind of don't want
for
to
a
table
week.
it
Well,
another.
could we,
I don't want to.
Carol's not going to want to hear this, but could we,
Let me see if I can get an answer from my
Yeah.
staff. So maybe Ann.
or
can-
come back and, you know, if we're going into exec, come out of exec
To pass the
pass the resolution.
Could we table that just to the end of this discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, can I just table 11, I'm so sorry. Table 1174.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Okay.
passed and carried.
So I'll go. So resolution 2022-1175 is to release security for urban renewal policy 46A. And that is for Miguel Navarez, and it's a cashier's check for $11,100.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 1176 is to extend a contract. This is for the Town of East Hampton's Energy Initiative Support Services, Renewable Energy Long Island. So we have a contract with them, and we've entered into an agreement for 3 years. It's renewable upon parties' agreement for 2 additional 1-year terms. And the town wishes to extend the agreement for an additional 1-year period, retroactive from June 30th through June 29th of 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 1177 is the list appointment to senior accountant Michael Kirst. And that is at an hourly rate of $36.12 and $75,146.03 annually. Grade 32, step 4 for 40-hour work week, paid bi-weekly, and that is effective October 17th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
Welcome.
1178 is Detective Luke McNamara training, and this is resolved that Detective McNamara is hereby authorized to attend evidence collection and processing training sponsored by Sarah G. at Hampton Bays Fire Department, October 17th through 21st, and that is in an amount not to exceed $650.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 1179 is a budget modification for the police department. And that is moving from other equipment in the amount of $1,500, grant expenses in the amount of $1,000, and shift differential in the amount of $26,000 to food in the amount of $2,500 and part-time salaries in the amount of $2,600.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 1180 is appropriation of capital reserve funds for general capital improvements. And this is whereas town board wishes to appropriate funding from capital reserve fund subject to permissive referendum pursuant to New York State General Municipal Law for the costs related to Stephen Hand's Path Ball Field Capital Project in the amount of $405,457.50. And this is approved by the town board for change order number 1, additional construction support services. And again, that amount is $405,457.57 from the general capital improvements reserve fund to Stephen Hand's Path Ball Field. Same amount. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. I believe we have one additional resolution.
I do. I have a resolution ID 28335. This is accept a memorial tree donation, whereas the friends and family of the late Jason Spielberg would like to donate a memorial tree to the town of East Hampton, where a small plaque will be placed at the Maidstone Park and Springs, provide shade for the bleachers in the Maidstone ball field. Be it resolved that the town of East Hampton hereby accepts the memorial tree donation with thanks to the donors.
Second.
Can I call for discussion?
Sure.
So I know that the town board's aware of my concerns. I know that the resolution doesn't state exactly where on the property, on the ball field, the tree is going to go. I know that it's a red maple. So that brings up a couple concerns. One is, I know the original plan was to put it on the first base side behind the chain link fence near the bleachers. And, I just can close my eyes and remember when my daughter played softball and how families and parents and grandparents and kids use that area. We've got very few bleachers there. So folks bring lawn chairs and sit up, kids run around, play around. And I'm concerned about root systems and whatnot there. And then if you're sitting on the third base side and, one of the beauties of your kids having ball games at Maidstone is you get a sensational sunset because Little League games typically start, during the week at 5:30 and you can watch the sun go down. And as the tree grows, it could block the vista to the setting sun. So I just have real concerns about the placement of the tree. I think that there aren't trees around the ball fields for specific reasons, and I'm just not sure. I understand that the family, wants it near the ball field because Jason was a Maidstoner and it has special meaning to them. But I'm just concerned about just the everyday use and how the community will react to, the potential to block a vista over there.
I can, if we accept a donation, I can continue to work with the family within those concerns. I know that I think they want to have a memorial upcoming, so that's why this is on for today, but we can work on citing. I can bring that more back to the board after another discussion.
So I thought from what I saw about the siting, it was at the first base side, and there was a fair distance between I think it's like a 6-foot chain link fence there.
Yeah,
that blocks off the field, so there's no interference of the tree with the field or trying to field a foul ball or anything like that. And I think it might be nice actually to have a spot where there's some shade, a tree giving shade.
I can understand the vista.
The families, because I think it's a short bleacher. I think it's only got 3 seats on that side.
Yeah. Well, it's a tree trunk.
That's where, folks, put their lawn chairs when, families turn up for the games and things. So kids play there, and again, I'm concerned.
Well, there's a playground right across the street. And I think, in terms of a tree, it's literally taking up 1 foot of space,
Yeah, I don't have a problem with where it was sited. I think I agree that shade might be nice over there.
I would just there's the vista aspect I didn't really think about until just recently that I would like to look at one more time.
Yeah.
But still,
I think the vista is from the third base side.
Yeah, so I want to go back up there and again, what this allows us to do is to prove it on the site, and then we can refine the requested area on there.
Right.
I think also what this does, Kate, you had mentioned this, is that I've never done a tree, memorial
I don't
tree.
think I've ever done one in 8.5
Yeah.
years I've been on the board.
But we do a lot of benches and that comes
They come from trees. We should start planting some more trees and offset the ones that are being cut down for the benches.
So that we started getting a process for that set. Severo was helping. We put a GIS layer. A lot of that comes through my office, how it was set. But I think getting a policy in place for who gets routed on this to see if it's appropriate, what liaison does. I think it's appropriate to the Buildings and Grounds liaison, which is me. Maybe that's how it got to me, or either way. But maybe we get that set so we can also put that onto because we've gotten others and not all of them get accepted. Some of them get denied, that we can also put onto the website so the individuals know that prior to approaching us, instead of getting anticipations high, we can make it more manageable. But I think that was appropriate, Kate. And I don't mind trying to draft something that put around to the board for both these situations on here then too. But with this, I could continue that discussion, but it allows us to move forward so they can make an anticipated memorial service. So that's why I put it forward.
So,
So you're going to go back out there and
I will go back out there knowing that we can place it there. I'll work with the family even more and listen to everyone's concerns and then listen to the family's concerns and bring it back to the board before anything is installed permanently. Is that okay for now? You think, or?
yeah, I mean, but this is looking to get planted prior to the next board meeting, right?
This is going to be looking to get planted prior, probably on the first or the second, I believe it is. So yes, I got this week.
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it where it is, so.
Okay.
But if you want to come back, if you want to have further discussion, but if
I think
this is it, I'm okay with this being it.
I think we approve it and just give me one more chance for that discussion within the context of what the board's concerns are.
So do we have a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's determined.
And do we have any information on?
Stop signs?
I think I got a text back. Maybe I did. Hold on. Yeah, let's see. They approved the installation of the sign there at the July meeting, according to Rhodey, who's the village.
Oh, they did.
That's
Okay.
right. So they did. So we should.
Okay. So I would like to make a motion, untable resolution 2022-1174.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2022-1174, which is amend chapter 240 vehicles and traffic to provide for installation of stop signs at certain intersections in Waynescott, Town of East Hampton. These include Town Line Road, North Daniels Lane, Town Line Road, North Hedges Lane, Town Line Road, North Main Street, Town Line Road, North Parsonage Lane.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. I believe we have a few items to talk about in exec session today.
I'll make a motion, go into exec session for license agreements, proposed lease, possible lease, and advice of counsel. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
It's now 1:45.
Members want to take a short break?
2:15?
2:15, yeah.
Okay.
Is that good?
15 it is.
All right.
Thank you very much. Stay safe and be well.